A British amateur boxing champion dies suddenly at 19 years old, in the peak of health. As of now, no cause of death has yet been released. Then we have a mathematics instructor who collapsed and died while playing basketball on campus. He was 29 years old. And finally, a 35-year-old man collapsed from cardiac arrest while playing hockey. This not long after being seen by a doctor after he complained of intense chest pain. His doctor reported not seeing any red flags in the man's symptoms. That, my friends, is going to be the subject of today's episode. And so, from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, Jude Moore, who was billed as a future world champion boxer, passed away on March 17th. His parents are still at a loss for precisely what happened to their boy and have no answers as to what happened. His tragic death comes shortly after his impressive knockout victory over the Polish national champion in his first senior fight. This according to the BBC. Moore's trainer, Craig Turner, described his fallen fighter as an immaculate talent, the likes of which his native Bristol had never seen before. As he put it, he was an absolute star, irreplaceable. Once you've met him, you would never forget him. The fact that he came from one of the most deprived wards in Great Britain to do what he did and achieved what he did is nothing short of amazing. He was outstanding at everything he did, and we are devastated. He didn't burn for long, but he burned very brightly for the time he did. As news of his death spread, British middleweight champion Nick Blackwell tweeted about Moore's passing, saying this: "So sad for boxing, this young talent has passed away. Jude Moore, just 19 years old. Devastating for his family. Sudden death, no warning, fit athlete. Rest in peace, Jude." Now, Moore had trained at Down End Boxing in Fish Ponds, Bristol, and was due to fight in Milan shortly before his passing. He leaves behind his parents and two brothers. Next, we turn to Peter Badu, a Department of Mathematics instructor who collapsed and died while playing basketball on campus. He was just 29 years old. About his death, MIT Mathematics published this post. They said, "It is with a sense of deep sorrow that we write to inform you of an unexpected and tragic loss in the math community. On Wednesday afternoon, February 15th, our department was notified of the sudden passing of Peter Badu at the age of 29 by cardiac arrest while playing basketball on campus. Peter was a brilliant applied mathematician with broad research interests and activities that spanned complex function theory, fluid dynamics, and machine learning, and data-driven methods. He was an exemplary teacher and colleague who gave generously of his time in assisting colleagues, graduate students and undergraduate students alike. He was a catalyst in organizing social events for our postdoctoral fellows and instructors, for which he received a Math Community Service Award. Peter was a lively, joyful young man, a gentle soul with a kind spirit and a ready smile. His interests extended well beyond mathematics and included music and sports, and he dearly loved his family and friends and was a devoted member of the Park Street Church. His last years were blessed by the love of his life, who he was to marry this spring. Peter will be sorely missed by all who knew him. Another life taken far too soon." And finally, we have a 35-year-old man who collapsed from cardiac arrest during a pickup hockey game. He survived thanks to the work of a paramedic, emergency room physician, and medicine resident who also just happened to be playing hockey that day. So what precisely happened here? Well, for the past couple of months, Brandon Miller had been experiencing some occasional pain in his left shoulder. And then, one day after moving something heavy, he experienced intense chest pain. As he put it, "I sat down and relaxed, and the pain didn't go away. It stuck around for about 45 minutes or so, and it got pretty intense." According to an article from Today, they wrote that soon after he visited his doctor who ran blood tests. Brandon Miller's cholesterol was a little high, but the doctor didn't see any red flags, this according to Miller. He also told the doctor in detail how his body felt when the chest pain occurred. And the doctor, after hearing his explanation of symptoms, thought it might be acid reflux. And so, on January 13th, Brandon took to the ice to play some hockey. Today.com wrote about this, saying that Miller had felt fine for most of the game, but towards the end of play, he experienced a jolt of pain in his shoulder. He assumed it was the muscle and kept playing, as there were only about 15 minutes left in the game. However, Brandon then fell. He got up and tried skating again. As he put it, "I just thought I was exhausted and my feet gave out. The second fall, I couldn't even get my arms up. It was like I lost all my energy and collapsed, and I just remember being very confused." And indeed he was, and moments later, Brandon collapsed on the ice and went unconscious. His heart had stopped beating. Now this is where Brandon's story took a turn for the better. As luck would have it, 3 of the other players were medical professionals who immediately began performing CPR. One of these men was Dr. Mike Fellenbaum, a third-year emergency medicine resident at University Hospitals Cleveland. He told the news outlet that Brandon had got up and took another 2 or 3 strides and then face-planted. At first we thought he was having a seizure. It looked like a seizure and he was still breathing, but he was unresponsive entirely. Dr. Fellenbaum, paramedic Matt Urey, and Dr. Venkatesh took turns performing CPR, while yet another player grabbed an AED. With the arrival of the AED, they delivered a shock and his pulse came back. As Dr. Fellenbaum put it, "It really hit me how lucky Brandon was that we were there, and how lucky we were to have been able to help him. I'm used to resuscitating half-dead people in the emergency department, and we get a lot of people back, but the truth is most people die because they haven't gotten CPR." And so, Brandon survived the cardiac arrest and went to the hospital. Once there, however, doctors discovered that his artery was 90% blocked. Miller would then end up undergoing coronary artery bypass surgery at the Cleveland Clinic. This as reported by Today, and he is still recovering. In reflecting on his experience, Brandon told the news outlet that, "If I had heard a story with someone my age whose cardiac arrest came out of nowhere, I would have been more hard-headed as far as getting stuff checked out by the doctor. If there's chest pain, go get it checked out. Don't underplay what's happening." And so it seems that there is an increase in cardiac arrests, which brings about the question, what is causing this increase? Well, according to KHON2 in Honolulu, Hawaii, a new study has been published that links the increase in heart attacks amongst adults between the ages of 25 and 44 to COVID-19. This study was conducted by the Smith Heart Institute at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and published in the Journal of Medical Virology. They used data from the CDC's National Vital Statistics System and identified roughly 1.5 million AMI-associated deaths, AMI meaning acute myocardial infarction. These occurred between the dates of April 1st, 2012 and ending on March 31st of 2022. The researchers noted that overall, heart attacks increased for all age groups since the onset of the pandemic by 14%. But, and interestingly, by the second year of the pandemic, meaning early 2022, which by the way is after the introduction of the mRNA vaccines into the mainstream, heart attacks for the 45 to 64-year-old age group increased by 19.6%, and for the 65 and older group had increased by 13.7%. However, and perhaps to many of you watching this video, unsurprising, due to the heavy influx of news on social media and news outlets regarding young men and women suffering cardiac arrests, it has indeed been confirmed that the youngest age group, meaning 25 to 44, had the highest increase by nearly 30%. The first author of the study and a Cedars-Sinai physician-scientist said about their study that there are several potential explanations for the rapid rise in cardiac arrests in patients with COVID-19, yet still many unanswered questions. Importantly, our results highlight disparities in mortality that have emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic and that are persisting even through the Omicron era. The dramatic rise in heart attacks during the pandemic has reversed what was a prior decades-long steady improvement in cardiac arrests. We are still learning the many ways by which COVID-19 affects the body, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, or race. According to the KHON2 report, the study team, even though they are early in their research, are pointing to many possible explanations for why this could be happening. For example, they said that COVID-19 may trigger or accelerate those with pre-existing conditions of coronary artery disease, and that there are external factors that the team point to for understanding this dramatic rise in heart attacks. Things like job loss, financial pressures, and social anxiety, which increased during the quarantine, are seen as potential factors. All of these can cause acute or chronic stress, which leads to heart disease. But do you know the one thing they don't mention as a possible cause of the increase in cardiac arrests? That's right, there is no mention of the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. It doesn't even seem to be remotely on the radar. As Dr. Zia Khan, chief of Queen's Heart Institute, said, the pandemic has definitely had a negative impact on people's health, and we are seeing that through this study in Hawaii, we are also seeing an increase in COVID-related heart conditions in all ages. So there you have it. It appears that COVID-19 is playing a role in the spike in cardiac arrests, as well as perhaps a plethora of other possibilities. Just not the mRNA vaccines. Nothing to see there. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday, or for written articles published every day, 7 days a week, check us out at trialsitenews.com. And as ever, always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.